What is the psychology of buying? Psychologists tell us that we all go through a process whenever we buy anything, whether we're buying a loaf of bread, a new car, a new home, or even a new service. In our minds, we all go through a process when we purchase anything. Wouldn't it be great to know where our prospects are in this process so that we can lead them to the conclusion that is best going to help them? This process is not about learning how to sell, but rather understanding what motivates people to buy. Understanding what makes people buy can make learning how to sell as easy as a walk in the park. But without that knowledge, it can be as difficult as trying to climb a mountain. It's equally as important to understand who our prospects are. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce tells us that 83% of all of American industry is now controlled by baby boomers. Therefore, it's important to understand the three things that baby boomers use when they're making their buying decisions. The first is service. We've grown accustomed to calling this instant gratification. Baby boomers want results, and they want answers, and they want them now. The second is relationships. All the prospects that I've talked to have indicated to me that they want to talk to their professional and have a relationship with them and interact with them on a regular basis, not just when they have difficulties or have a problem. They want to hear from you even when the good times are around. And the third is convince. They want to be convinced that they're making the right buying decision. They want you to tell them why they should use your product or service. Convince them that they're doing the right thing. Boomers are better educated and better informed than any generation in the history of our country. That makes them good consumers, looking for value. Let me read to you a quote that comes from the New York Times. In June of 1989, Marilyn Austin Tarleton, as president of the National Association of Law Firm Marketing Directors, says, "Many professionals now agree with marketers who say hard work and a good reputation are not enough to attract clients and customers. Clients and customers are becoming good consumers, and they're asking for more than a friendly relationship to justify hiring a professional." If you want to just get by, then continue doing what you're doing. But if you want more of your share of the business that's out there, then learn this process. So what is this process? Well, before we can take a look at the process, we first have to examine our own attitude. Enthusiasm. It's the glue that holds this whole process together. It demonstrates the confidence that you have in yourself, your product or service, and your company. You can't expect to ignite a flame of enthusiasm in someone else if you have doubts in yourself. All too often we get turned down by prospects because they can see in our eyes that that's exactly what we expect them to do. You're not just selling your company, you're selling yourself. Let's take a look at what happens if we approach our prospects without enthusiasm.
Bob, I was told that you might like to utilize some of the services that my company has. We're a very large company. We've been in business for many years. We work very closely with our clients, and we become enthused with our clients with what they do.
Come on, would you buy something from someone like that? There is no enthusiasm and no confidence displayed anywhere. You've probably destroyed any opportunity you have of making a new client or customer out of that prospect. There are 5 reasons why you should remain confident and enthusiastic. The first is you can have confidence in the people that work with you. They can help you solve the problems for your clients or prospects. Number 2, you can have confidence in the evidence that you have, tangible proof of the claims that you're making. Number 3, you can have confidence that you can match your services to the needs of your prospect. Number 4, you can have confidence in the results that you've demonstrated in the past. And number 5, you can have confidence, enthusiasm, because you are a person that does miracles. Your prospects and your clients and customers come to you because you can do things that they're unable to do. They perceive you as a miracle worker. Let's see what happens when we put all of these ingredients together.
One of the reasons, Bob, that I wanted to come see is to be able to finally put a face with the name after our correspondence, because with our relationship, I feel we're going to be working very intimately together. If I can help you, I'll have to know you better and your company better. And service is what we're built on. So let me ask you, this is a fascinating industry you're in.
Yes,
How long have you been in it?
I've been in it, say, 8 years.
8 years.
What a difference it makes to your prospect when they see demonstrated in you a level of confidence and enthusiasm about yourself and your product. It really doesn't matter how many degrees you have or how many plaques you have hanging on the wall unless you demonstrate enthusiasm and confidence in your presentation. Enthusiasm. It's the glue that holds the entire process together. So what is this process? We're going to get to that in just a few moments. But let's find out, first of all, what is it that motivates people to buy? The dominant buying motive. People buy for 2 reasons. They have a need that they have to satisfy, and that sometimes is pretty obvious. If I have an issue that I need to look to an attorney to help me satisfy, I come to you. If I need to have a building built, I come and talk to you. I need a loan. I have that need. I come and talk to you at the bank. If I'm looking to sell my house, I come and talk to you to help me get that job done. That's the need that I need to have satisfied. But people also buy because they have an emotional need that has to be satisfied. People will buy for 2 reasons. They have a need and they have an emotion that needs to be satisfied. And we call that the DBM, the dominant buying motive. People buy for 2 reasons. They have a need and an emotion. Now, it may be a little difficult to believe that people would actually buy legal services or come in to talk to a banker about a loan or even purchase property or build a building because they need to satisfy an emotional need. But the truth of the story is we're always motivated by emotional needs that have to be satisfied, and we'll make decisions about using your services based on how well you're going to be able to satisfy that emotional need. Emotions such as power, success. We're driven sometimes even by fear. Sometimes we're driven by greed and anger and also love. Even the smallest decisions that we make can be motivated by an emotion that has to be satisfied. Every business decision we make involves emotion, whether we like to admit that or not. And our prospects also are going to make decisions about your business and your offer to them based on emotion. Even buying new cars, that involves making emotional decisions. I pride myself on being a good businessman, and recently I bought a new car. And I went in and I negotiated a great trade-in value. I went in and negotiated a great interest rate and a great loan. And then I began to tell them what it was that I wanted in a car. And they came up with everything that I wanted, and they went out and showed me the car, and it was dove gray. And you can see what color car I am standing next to. This is the car I purchased, red. Because when they showed me the red car, I found out this is really what I wanted. And it didn't have all the options. It actually had a few more options than I wanted. And it even cost me just a little bit more, but it was within my price range. And as a result of the emotional decision of buying a red car, I now own this vehicle rather than the one that I actually came in looking for to begin with. Don't kid yourself. Emotion plays a big part in the decisions people are going to make about your business and about the offer you have for them. There are four basic emotions that motivate us to buy. And again, I've got another acronym for you, and I call it LEGS. L stands for love. People do buy because they love one another. Ego, they need to satisfy an ego. Greed, unfortunately, we find that it happens more often than we'd like. And self-preservation, a lot of times fear, needs, that kind of thing is the kind of emotion that motivates people to buy, self-preservation. So now we've discovered that the dominant buying motive means that people have two things that have to be satisfied, a need and an emotion. So how do we discover what the dominant buying motive is? We do that through a series of steps that I call the 3 Ps. So let's take a look at what the 3 Ps are. The first P is personal. Establish a rapport with the prospect that you're dealing with. Take time to find out who they are. And all too often in our world, time is money, money is time, and it is difficult for us to stop the pace long enough and pause to find out who people really are. All the prospects that I deal with are constantly saying, I want my professional to be a human being, to care about me. You might recall when we were looking at Mick Meek in the second scene, when he was talking to us and showing us how to properly use enthusiasm, one of the things that he was doing there was to discover more about the prospect that he was dealing with. What are their hobbies? How about their children or their grandchildren? And what is it that they like about the career that they've selected and the business that they're in? Taking time to be personal and establish a rapport. The second P is problem. Now this is the one that we're good at. We're used to sitting down and across from our prospect and asking them, what can I do for you? How can I help you? And they will respond, I have a need. I have a problem. Help me determine what to do. Help me satisfy this need. And this is where you ask all of the questions that you're good at. This is where we find out all the technical issues. What size building do you want? What is it that you need to have us do? Do we need to get an injunction? Do we need to incorporate? Do we need to write up a listing? Or do we take a loan application? Whatever it is that we need to do, this is where you ask those kinds of things. The third P is what I call the payoff. It is here that we discover what emotion it is that's motivating people to buy. You know, I remember a time when I was working with a CPA firm and we went and visited an architect. And this architect was looking for a bookkeeper or an accountant to help them in their business. And I asked him the question, I said, well, what would it mean to you if we were to help you find a bookkeeper or an accountant to handle the accounting? And he said, I would love it because I hate accounting. I hate everything there is to do with numbers. I don't like accounting. And if you could help me do that, you would help me be able to do what I like to do, and that is to create, to be an architect. I'm an artist. And I said, well, what would it mean to you if you could go out and create and be an artist? And he said, if I could do that, then I could hire more architects. And I said, well, if you could hire more architects, what would that mean to you? And he said, if I could hire more architects, I could make more money. And I said, if you could make more money, what would that mean to you? And his whole demeanor changed. And he said, if I could make more money and have more architects and this bookkeeper running my business, I could have more time to myself. Because I've been promising my wife for 25 years that I would take her on a cruise in the Caribbean. And now she's dying of leukemia. And I need to get home. What was motivating this guy? His need was he needed a bookkeeper, but the emotion that was motivating him was love. So take the time to find out what the payoff is. How do we discover the dominant buying motive? The steps are the 3 Ps: personal, problem, and payoff. So now we know what the dominant buying motive is because we have gone through the steps of discovering it that I call the 3 Ps. So what is then this process that psychologists tell us that we all go through when we buy anything? I call it the 4 Cs. The first C is we have to capture the prospect's attention. Generally speaking, this is going to be done for us through the marketing program of our companies. If the marketing program is working properly, it's going to capture the attention of the prospects that we're trying to reach. But once in a while, it's going to be your responsibility to meet someone and capture their attention. And generally we do that by asking a question that bears on a need. Remember the architect I told you about? The question that I would use to capture his attention is, if I could find a way to get you home with your wife sooner, would you like to know how? That is a question that bears on a need. And what's he going to do? He's going to say, yes, I'd like to know more. The second C is concentration. We've got to be able to maintain the concentration of our prospect. You know, psychologists tell us that the average attention span of professionals is only 7 seconds. If your attention span is no longer than that, then how do you expect your prospect to pay attention to what you have to say any longer? The way we do that is that we make a general claim about what we're going to do for them. Remember my architect story? The claim that I would make is, Mr. Prospect, we've been doing this kind of thing, that is finding bookkeepers for businesses, for the past 45 years, and we can do it for you. That is a claim about what we're going to do for him, and he will then concentrate on what we have to say, and we'll get beyond that 7-second limitation. The third C in the process that I call the 4 C's is convince. Now, up to this point, you have realized that as we went through the dominant buying motive and the 3 P's and the first 2 C's, nowhere have we talked about our service and what we can do for our prospect. Now we get to do that. The conviction step is the critical difference in the process and will make you successful in convincing your prospect to use your service. There are 4 parts in the conviction step. The first part is a fact. Now, what's a fact? A fact is a brief statement of truth, usually 1 sentence long, about who we are, the service we provide, and how it is going to meet the need of our prospect. We present a fact that will address the need. The second part is benefit, and it's here that we're going to address the emotional need. You know, people buy benefits. They want to buy what's in it for me. Tell me what's in this for me. How am I going to gain by the fact that you just told me about that is going to meet my need? Tell me what's in it for me. What benefit do I receive? The third step is evidence, presenting tangible evidence about the fact that you presented up here. This, I guarantee you, is going to set you apart. No one else in your industries is doing this, providing tangible evidence, proof that the fact that they've claimed is really true. If we don't give them evidence, why should they believe? Because the banker down the street, the realtor down the street, the attorney down the street, the builder down the street has just made the same claim that you have. The difference is you're providing evidence. The 4th C is close. One of the most difficult times that we as professionals have is asking for the business. If we've gone through this entire process, the 3 P's and the 4 C's, we've earned the right to ask for the business. And that's exactly what I've said here. Ask for the prospect's business. There are different ways that we can close, different ways that we can ask for the business, but that's beyond the scope of what we're here to talk about today, and we'll talk about that at another time. But the 4 C is close. Always ask for the prospect's business. That's the first general rule in closing. So there you have it. The process, the 4 C's. We've got to capture their attention. Concentration, we've got to maintain their concentration. Convince, there are 4 parts in the conviction step. And close.
Wade, this all sounds pretty good, but I think if I were to take a client or a prospective client through this process you've described, I would feel as though I was manipulating that person into buying a service that they didn't necessarily need.
I understand what you're saying, but this whole process is really founded on the concept of integrity. And I know you're not implying that your firm wouldn't be a firm of integrity. You are. But what we're assuming here is the prospect really does have a need. And a lot of times the prospect has to have drawn out of them some of the emotions that are motivating this need so that you can find out what it is that really needs to be satisfied. That's not manipulation, that's integrity, that's discovery, that's understanding what their need is and what's motivating them to buy, not manipulating them into a need that really really doesn't exist. And so if the need really isn't there, this process doesn't work. And the truth is, and I think we'd all agree, we wouldn't want to be in front of them anyway if they didn't have the need. Good question, good question.
Facts and evidence seem to be the same to me. Can you really explain the difference to me of the two?
Sure. As I indicated to you, a fact is a brief statement of truth, usually one sentence long. Okay, that is self-explanatory basically, but you're isolating in on a particular issue or service or product that can meet the need of the individual. You remember my architect's story. The fact that I presented to him was, the fact is, we have been doing this for other companies for 45 years. That's a fact. It's a brief statement of truth, usually one sentence long. The evidence stage, though, is tangible. I talked about the fact that we need to be able to present something to them that they can see, that is in writing, or that is a testimonial letter, for example, that demonstrates to them that the fact that I just claimed is really true. So if I've been in business for 45 years and I've been finding bookkeepers for companies for 45 years, I would probably produce letters of testimony from other clients that I've been doing that, or customers that I've been doing that, or I would bring out evidence that it indicates when we were incorporated and that we have been providing that kind of service for 45 years. So one is tangible, the other is intangible, the fact, but the fact addresses the need, the evidence proves the fact. Okay?
Wade, how do we know when to close?
I'm glad you asked. That's one of the most common questions I get asked in the close step. And really, I call it look for buying signals. And a buying signal is anything that the prospect does or says which in their mind indicates that they've bought. So when we say does or says, the does part is commonly known as body language. We'll see someone sitting there with their arms crossed one minute, the next minute they've opened their arms, they're leaning across the desk, listening more intently to what you have to say. That's something they're doing that indicates that in their mind they bought. In something that they say, that's something where they might be silent and then suddenly start asking you a barrage of questions. What about this and how come that? And they're beginning to make inquiry because they're interested, and really it's an indication that they bought. They may ask you about terms. What are your terms for payment? Or can I pay on a quarterly basis? Or can I pay on a monthly basis? Or who from your company is going to work directly with me? Or when can we start? All of those are things that they say which indicates that in their mind they have bought. And when you see a buying signal, it is time to move into the fourth C and close.
Wade, I've been thinking, why is it important that professionals know how to sell their services?
Good question. The thing that I've been trying to convey, probably more than anything else, is the importance of the fact that the prospects that most of us deal with today are better educated and better informed than they've ever been in the history of our country. That makes them good consumers. And as hard as it is for us as professionals to believe, even if people walk into our place of business, our offices, they really will compare us to our competitors down the street. They'll compare our resumes, they'll compare our tactics, they'll compare our plans, and yeah, they'll compare our fees to the person down the street. And when they're doing that, they're trying to find the right kind of individual, the right kind of company that they're going to buy from. They're interested in you. And the other part of it is, we as professionals have lost sight of the fact that we're human beings, and those people out there don't necessarily think we are. We have to learn what it is to be human. And this process then tells the prospect that we're dealing with that we're human beings. We're interested in what's happening with them, and furthermore, we're going to tell you, we're going to sell you, we're going to convince you that using our service, our product, is the right one to meet your need and your emotion. Let's take a few moments and review what we've learned today. Enthusiasm It's the glue that holds this entire process together. Your prospect must see a confident, enthusiastic approach to them about yourself, about your product, and about your company. We've learned that people buy for two reasons. They have a need that must be satisfied, and they have an emotion that must be satisfied. We call that the dominant buying motive. We discover the dominant buying motive through a three-step process we call the 3 Ps. The first P is personal. That's where we establish a rapport with our prospect. The second P is problem. That's where we discover the need that the prospect has that we have to have satisfied. And the third P is payoff. That's where we discover what the emotional need is. Once we know what the dominant buying motive is, it's time to go through the process that we call the 4 Cs. The first C is capture. We've got to be able to capture our prospect's attention. The second C is concentration. We've got to be able to maintain their concentration on what it is that we have to say. The third C is convince. We've got to be able to convince them to use our products or services, and we do that with 4 steps. The first step is presenting a fact that makes a claim about how we're going to satisfy their need. The second step is the related benefit as to how it's going to satisfy their emotional need. The third step is evidence, tangible evidence that proves the claim that we've made. And the fourth step is the nail down, determining if the prospect agrees that the fact and the benefit satisfies their need. And the fourth C is close. You've earned the right to ask for their business. Make sure that you do.